too late or too old doesn't exist. The same way that time is a created construct, the idea of having missed the time or like being too old or being too young just really is made up in our head. The only time that's too late is the time when you never do it. Welcome to Almost Grown Up, the podcast where we figure out life one creative detour at a time. Hi, I'm Lucy, a writer, creator, and your creative companion. And around here, we believe that play and wonder aren't just for kids. In fact, they're the tools we use to tackle life's big questions, find our flow, and discover our way when we realise the map we're on isn't our map. Each week in the Blanket Fort, we explore growing up with ideas, inspiration, and one giant permission slip to create your own beautiful and occasionally messy life. Hey team, welcome back to the Blanket Fort. So today we are covering a big one. The idea that we are going to tackle today is this question of, is it too late to start over? And I was chatting to a friend the other day who is going through one of these moments where it feels like life doesn't feel quite right now. She knows a change needs to happen, but it can feel a bit like, oh, is it too late? How have I not figured this out by now? How am I back here again? And I've seen a lot actually recently on social media of people sharing kind of their stories of starting over. And I think this phrase, this idea of starting over is something that is being talked about a lot. And we are kind of in this moment where it's easy to feel like, oh, I would also maybe like to start over in this way or in this thing. Because starting over doesn't have to be a whole life change, right? It could be starting over with a creative project or a creative direction, or with your health, or with your job, or with your relationship, or with your way of relating to the world, or just something small with starting over with the way you start your day, for example. And I think that often we can get tripped up by this idea of it being too late to do that thing, or us having missed the boat. So in today's episode, I want to devote our time to thinking about this question of, is it too late? And looking at how our relationship with time affects the fact that we're even asking that question, right? And also then look at, okay, how do we switch our perspective of time? How do we embrace the unknown? That thing of like, I know I want change, but I'm not sure what's coming to fill that place. And in that like, bit in between can feel really uncomfortable. So how do we embrace that and explore that? And then a couple of my favorite creative and playful rituals to help us find our way when we are feeling like we're not sure what the next thing is, or to start to embrace that thing that we secretly know we want to do but feel like we might have missed the boat for. So that is what we're going to cover today. Thank you so much for being here in the Blanket Fort with me. Let's dive in. So we're going to start by tackling the kind of big thing that gets in a lot of our way, like just head on. You know how they say eat the frog? This is us eating the frog on this whole, I've missed the boat, it's too late for me to start over, or is it too late for me to start over, or maybe I'm too young to do this thing or too old to do this thing. And that big elephant in the room, that big thing that we need to tackle is time and our relationship to time. And it's been a really interesting for me over the last couple of years to realize how much my relationship with time is bound up with my desire to be productive, to feel successful, to feel worthwhile. And it's all trapped in this idea of what I expect of myself, what I expect to achieve, the markers that I've created, and the way in which I kind of mark my life and feel like I can tick things off and say, yeah, you've done a good job because I've accomplished things, I've used my time well, I've kind of made the most of this time. And it's interesting to see that there is both the actual time that we live in, like the very real experience of going through a day, which is the time that we have to use. And then this marker, this measure of time, this thing that says you're too old to do that, you're too young to do that, people at your age do this thing, people take only this amount of time to do that thing. You know, the fact that we feel like we should be successful at something really quickly rather than thinking about the 20, 30, 40, 50 years sometimes people put into getting good at something. And our relationship to time is so skewed to this idea of quick and fast and meeting the measure of other people, and not looking or really understanding that the time it took them to do that thing, but more just marking ourselves against this external idea or our own internal idea of what we think should be. And it's really tricky, right? Because that is the culture in which we live. That is the way in which we are being marketed to, the way we are being talked to, the expectations that we have. But time, when you really think about it, that clock time, not the time that we extend forward, but that clock time, that's a construct. That was created so that we can have a transport system that runs, that we can go, okay, I can get on a train because we all agree that this moment is going to be called that time, and I will be there at that time, and the train will also be there at that time. It was created to help us gather in one place at the same moment, or to be able to get public transport, or just know that we were all going to be somewhere at the same time. Not so that we could mark ourselves about how well we done, or whether we were ahead or behind, or that yardstick of time, that kind of like, let me get out my measure and see. And when you start to realize that, it's like, oh, okay, so actually too late or too old doesn't exist. The same way that time is a created construct, the idea of having missed the time, or like being too old or being too young, just really is made up in our head. That doesn't mean it's easy to get past. It doesn't mean you can just be like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, that's made up, don't worry about it. It's not like, I mean, it can be the monster under the bed, right? I was about to say it's not like the monster under the bed, but we all know that once you've decided that there's a potential monster under your bed, no amount of rational thinking is going to help you out of that sometimes. Like, it does take time. But in saying that, I just want to recognize that if at the very start of this, we can say, hey, this is a construct, and maybe, just maybe, I can figure out a way to make that construct useful for me rather than working against me. And then the second idea that I think comes into this, is it too late? Have I missed the boat? Is this sense of sunk cost fallacy, which, if you don't know this term, basically it is the idea that we have put enough energy into a thing that if we leave it, we'll have lost all of that energy that we put in. We'll have lost all of that time, all of that work. It can feel that with leaving a job, or changing career paths, or leaving a relationship. Those things where we've invested maybe a lot of ourselves, a lot of our time, a lot of our energy into something, and we might know it's not right. We might feel that we don't fit any longer in that space, either because we've outgrown it, or our desires have changed, or, we've had that experience and we're ready for another one. But what often happens is that sense of like, I know this isn't right. I know I don't want to be here, be doing this thing anymore, but I've been doing this now for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, or maybe even just a year. And I feel like I've invested all this time, so I should continue. And this idea of sunk cost fallacy is basically that we believe that we should continue with something because we've been doing it up to that point, and we've put so much effort into it now that any not continuing with it would be a waste. But actually, if you take this idea that everything that you've put into that is learning, is growth, and what's come out of that is the recognition that it's not the right thing for you right now, or anymore, or in this moment, and then you use that to go on to the next thing, then nothing is lost, right? And I think this is an important realization, that this idea that we've invested in something, and then if we change career, if we leave a relationship, we somehow lost that, I think is what holds a lot of us back, when really it's all just feeding into the journey of where we're going next. So I think if we can switch our perspective on time to be something we can use, and on investment of that time in the past to be another resource that we can draw on as we move forward, I think all of a sudden the question of, is it too late, just isn't relevant anymore. Because what's late? Like, the only time that's too late is the time when you never do it, right? I think we all have this moment now that we can decide to step into something different, that we can decide to take that next move forward. And just recognizing that too late or too early doesn't exist really. It's just that next step moving forward, and allowing ourselves to be a bit lighter about what we've invested in the past and the way that we view the time that we have and the marker of everybody else and their lives and their routine. It then just creates that little bit of space for us to sit and think about, okay, but what is it that I really do want? And if it's change, and if it's time for a change in one area, in all areas, then let's honor that voice, because I'm not losing by honoring that voice. I'm actually just letting myself move forward and grow, which is kind of the whole point of growing up, right? That we do this growing thing. Like I always say, I am convinced that all of these growing pains are going to just make me so tall when I'm older. I'm just going to be so tall. It's going to be great. So an example of this for me recently was, I was thinking, I read this book and I was like, oh, I wish I'd done that in my 20s, right? It was about somebody going in and living abroad and having this experience, and I didn't move abroad until my 30s, and there was a part of me that's like, oh, I wonder what I would be doing, how life would be different, that uniqueness of having done that thing at a very early age and feeling like, oh, I wish I'd have done that in my 20s, or a desire to go and, I was like, I just want to go and spend 6 months in an apartment in Paris and read books and eat croissants. And obviously the reality of my life right now is not going to enable that. And right now, would I really want to go away by myself for 6 months and not see my son for 6 months? Of course not. No way. But there is a part of me that has this dream of like, oh, if only I'd done that thing, and wouldn't it have been nice to have done that thing? And I was feeling that sense of loss of maybe the choices that I'd made, especially when I first graduated uni, and maybe that I hadn't been adventurous enough or tried enough things. And it's easy to look back on those moments of the things we should have done, where we felt like we've missed the boat to do those things now. But what I was reflecting on was actually, instead of one, all the things, the choices that I did make have got me to where I am now. And there are so many things that I'm grateful for in my life now that I would not want to change. And then number two, that there's probably an essence of something in that experience that I was craving. And actually, it wasn't necessarily to go to Paris for 6 months and just read books, or to have been more adventurous when I was 21 years old. But maybe there's a desire in me now to have a little bit more time to read, or to have a bit more of an adventure. And actually, maybe I'm not going to go to Paris for 6 months, but maybe I'll go away for the weekend by myself and just spend that weekend reading books. Or maybe I will go on an adventure with my family and do something different. Or maybe I can just satisfy that desire for an adventure in different ways. So I think if you're in that moment where instead of thinking it's too late to start over, you're thinking, oh, I missed the boat on doing that thing and now I'm never going to be able to do it, is to maybe ask yourself, what is the thing, what's really the thing that you're wishing? Is it exactly that thing in exactly that way? Or is there an essence that you can pull out of that and find where that could take you, and realize that that's a need that you have in your life? Because I think the more we are honest with ourselves about where we're at and what we're doing right now, the easier it is to figure out that next kind of step on the map, that next move forward. So I'm really thoughtful about the fact that actually we often feel this marker of time as a failure, but really it's just a reminder to think a bit differently about what we want to do now, and maybe be honest with ourselves about the fact that there is something that we want to do now that we've been ignoring. So I had a microphone failure, and so now we are working with a tiny mic, and hopefully it all sounds okay. But it kind of is a good segue, because what I want to talk about now is this idea of the unknown. and how often, if it's not time that is stopping us from feeling like it's too late to do this thing or we've missed the boat on that thing, it is the fact that we know that what we are doing, where we're at, this job, this relationship, this career, this home, this place, this hobby, this thing isn't right for us anymore, but we don't know what's next. And we're in that place of unknownness. And that can be the thing that often stops us moving forward, because it's like, well, where I don't even know where to move forward to. So I'm going to stay in this place that I know. And I think the challenge is that actually for change to happen, often we have to take a step before we really know what that thing is or what it's going to become. I have this sense often that if we see the path clearly in front of us, it's probably not our path. It was probably created by somebody else and it looks attractive. And we're like, okay, cool. That's a nice, well paved road. Let me do that. Because that whole Robert Frost, I took the road less traveled. I always think of that YouTube video, the Kid President one. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but he's like, and it hurt. Like the road less traveled is painful at times, right? It's not been cleared. We've got to be like hacking through all the undergrowth or whatever to find our way. And so that unknownness can feel like a big blocker, and it can be a reason that we feel like it's too late. It's because it's like, it's too late to make this change because I don't know what's next. I can't see that thing. And my take on this is that this is where our permission slips come in. This is where we need to write ourselves one huge permission slip to be ourselves, and to really believe in that and allow ourselves to be all of ourselves rather than trying to cram into a box or into a specific path. And then I think the other permission slip we need to give ourselves is to trust ourselves, trust what we know. And the other day I was chatting to a friend in a cafe about their next job, their next career move. And part of me wanted to say, oh my God, here are all the things I think you could do and you'd be amazing at this and amazing at this. And then I realized, like, actually, some of the stuff I'm going to suggest isn't going to be right because I don't know what she knows. I don't know the things that she has learned from the experiences she's had that have made her be like, okay, this thing isn't right for me. And I've learned that, and I've learned that again. And I find myself back in the same place doing the same thing. And I know it's not right, but I don't know what's next. And is that feeling. But actually, I might be able to suggest 100 different things. And sometimes that's useful. But actually, what most important, I think, is recognizing that she knows for herself what the right thing is. She knows what that right next step is, what that thing that is calling out, or at least what she's learned from the experience she's had that she needs to take forward into the next thing. Because I think this is often where we go wrong. And it comes with this idea of starting over, right? We say, like, I'm going to start over. But what does starting over really mean? We're not it's this feeling of wanting to have like a fresh sheet of paper and begin again. But we're taking all of us with us, like all ourselves with us. We're taking all of the experience we've had, all of the things we've learned. We're taking all of that with us. So I think we need to recognize in this moment that starting over is just turning the next page. It's maybe a new cycle, it's maybe a new chapter, and maybe a new adventure, but it is with us, with our self that we have learned and grown, and all of the experiences we've had, the challenges, the lessons, the things that have gone really wrong and not been fair, and then the times that we have triumphed and figured it out, and the learning that we have about ourselves. All of that stuff we're taking forward. And I know I felt in the past, like, I feel like sometimes like, oh, how am I back here again in this place? How have I not figured this out yet? But then I kind of like to think of myself as entering this kind of metaphorical waiting room or whatever. And I feel that sense of like, oh, I'm back here again. A bit like Severance, when you're like, you pop up in a place and you're like, really here? But I like to think that actually, every time I've gone round, I'm putting post-its up on the wall. Like, past me is like, I've learned this thing. Remember that. Like, remember talking to this person helps, or remember going and taking that yoga class helps, or like doing a 5-minute dance helps, or set yourself this little project and that will help. Or do you know what? You know this for sure. So when you're making your next decision, make sure that that is included in it because you know that. And I think remembering that we bring with us all of these resources, these knowledge, um, as we kind of tread forward on that new path, it kind of, yes, we are on an adventure, but we've got a whole toolkit in our bag. We've got like a bit of a compass that can kind of tell us which way's the right way. We've got the tool to like boil some water and hack some wood and make a campfire and a little camp for us to stop up in, because we've done this stuff before and we're bringing that knowledge with us. So even though you might be treading an entirely new path, don't forget that you're not doing that without all of this prior experience, all of these things that you have learned up to this point, and just giving yourself permission to trust that, to trust yourself and know that you will figure it out, I think is a huge part of being able to step into the unknown and letting go of that fear that it is somehow too late to start over, or that you don't know what is next. And until you know, you can't move forward, because I think it is one of those things that you only gain confidence, you only learn things by doing them. So the only way to get past the unknown is to take a step forward. So we've kind of given ourselves permission to think about time differently. We have given ourselves permission to trust ourselves in this unknown space and to take steps forward anyway. And I sort of wanted to finish the episode by sharing a couple of my favorite creative rituals in these moments when we are in a period of change, whether it is a larger change that we want to make, which is kind of like life changing, or whether it's like a change around a hobby or a specific part of our life, or an art direction or something like that, where it's maybe not all encompassing, but it's enough of a new start to feel a bit like, oh, okay, this is new and a bit uncomfortable and it's going to feel a bit wrong for a while. Um, so my absolute favorite creative ritual is to create your own inner cheerleader. And we've talked about this idea of kind of personifying different parts of ourselves before. And I think there is nothing better than having your own pep talk in your head. So, what I would suggest, my kind of call to adulting this week for you, is to go away and have a little session where you think about, you find that inner cheerleader. Maybe you want to meditate for a couple of minutes or close your eyes and have a think, or think about like that absolute part of yourself that really believes in you, that really wants you to do well, that has enthusiasm for that. Find that part and write about it. Imagine what they would be like if they were a character or a person or a animal or an inanimate object that you give kind of these personified features to. And think about all of the things, like what would they be called, how would you relate to them, like what's their favorite song, what do they want to say to you, how do they kind of relate to you, what would they do on their weekends, how would they spend their time off. Like, imagine all of those different things. Create this world for your inner cheerleader and definitely give them a name. And then when you need that, call on it. And even if it's just a daily reminder that you want to be like, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to go and get a little pep talk now from my inner cheerleader. Like, I'm going to go and get that moment where I'm like, yeah, okay, team, what are we doing? How are we doing it? Yeah, okay, great. You know, and it seems silly and it is, but actually is also really powerful. And I think that's something I spoke about a couple of weeks ago. I think it was on TikTok somewhere, and I'd kind of been like, it's insane to me that play is seen as frivolous when it can do so much. And somebody commented, but isn't the point of play that it's frivolous? And I'm like, yes, 100%. The point is that it's frivolous and silly, and that's what makes it fun, but that doesn't make it not powerful. And I think just remembering that when we do some of these exercises is a bit of a game changer. So that would be my first call to adulting. And then I have two, like a split multiple choice path for you now. So if you kind of know what you want and you kind of want to take this leap into this new life, this new moment, this new thing, but you're not sure you're quite ready, or you don't know what it would look like in its fully formed version, my challenge to you is to think about one tiny aspect of that experience. So, earlier on I was talking about like wanting to go and spend 6 months in Paris reading books when I was 21. Uh, Maybe what I want to go and do, like the easiest thing right now, is just go to a cafe and sit out on the sidewalk with my book and read my book, and let that be this mini moment of having that life. Um, or maybe it's something entirely different, but finding a way to bring a small element of that thing that you want to life right now. Like, do it today, do it this week, do it this weekend, do it this month. Make it happen now, because it will help give you that sense of like, oh, these these moments can be pulled in and it will give me this feeling, and maybe I'll take that forward, and it just brings momentum, right? It just brings that first step. And if conversely you are more in the, I don't know, like I know this isn't right, but I have no idea what is next, my challenge to you is to go and do something new every day for the next week, the next month, however long you can or want to sustain it. And maybe it's eating new food, or walking a different way to work, or trying a new cafe, or going to a different supermarket, or picking up a book that you wouldn't normally read, or going out and doing an activity that you would never normally do, or trying a different exercise, or watching a different TV show, or going on a different social media platform, even if it is as small as that you're still kind of doing that thing, but you're doing it slightly differently. Because in those new experiences, I think we start to get information, right? We get things of like, oh no, I don't like that. And I realize I never read these books because I don't enjoy them. They don't feel good to me. So that's something I know. Okay, that's cool. I like this genre. I like this style. I like this person. Or, oh, okay, cool. I didn't know that this supermarket sold that. And maybe I could try this food. And oh, that makes me think of this. And it takes you on these journeys because you let yourself try something different. You give yourself that permission to step into the unknown and learn time and time again that it's okay, that you get information back. It might not always be great. You might not always want it. You might not always like what you're doing in the newness, but you're getting back information. You're finding out something new. And that's all really useful tools. And it creates momentum, which I kind of think is a little bit of the hack for all of this thing is, how do we not feel like we're too late to start over or we've missed the boat? We just create momentum around the thing we are now, because I'm currently doing The Artist's Way, and Julia Cameron, who is the author of The Artist's Way, says something really powerful at one point. She goes something like, do you know how old I would be if I tried to start piano now when I got good at it? And her reply is, yeah, you'd be the same age as you would be if you didn't start, right? So that idea that the best time to start something if we feel we're too late is to start it now. And because in 5, 10, 15, 20 years time, we'll be like, oh, okay, cool. I've been doing that thing for 20 years now. Cool. Maybe I'm really good at piano now. Maybe I can speak that language now. Maybe I'm really good at this career. Maybe I have become that artist that I wanted to become, or I've become the accountant or the lawyer or the medic or the vet or the world traveler or the parent or the whatever it is, that thing that we want. We're so much better off starting today. So I hope this gives you a little reminder to take that momentum, a huge permission slip to trust yourself, and to let yourself know those things. The things that you do know, just let yourself know those and trust in that. And just drop that sense that time is somehow against you, because time is a construct. So you can make it on your side. You can construct it to be on your side. It's just about reframing it differently. So if you are starting over, if you are kind of on that journey, I would love to hear about it. Let me know, leave me a comment. What are you starting over in? Where are you going? What do you feel called to do? What's the kind of next step in that adventure? I would love to hear. Thank you so much for being back in the blanket fort. We will be back in 2 weeks' time. And I think in a couple of weeks' time, we're actually going to talk about some of my favorite creative rituals when we are stuck or just feeling a bit meh. So hopefully there'll be another sense of momentum that you can use to keep moving forward, to keep figuring it out as we deal with everything that is this mess of growing up. But thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful week. I will be back soon. But in the meantime, happy growing.